Crouch pumps once, is in trouble, eludes a tackle, gets out of the end zone. He's to the 5, he's to the 10, Crouch to the 15, out across the 20, Crouch to the 25, out across the 30, 35, 40, look out, he could go, he's to the 40, he's to the 30, he's to the 20, he's to the 10, he's all the way!
Totally unbelievable.
Ball right on the end. The snap is down. The kick is up. The kick is on its way, and the kick is good! He bangs it in there. 57 yards out of school record to put the Huskers in front, 33-31.
To the near side. Kellogg gets a shotgun snap. Final play of the game. Ron waiting for the wideouts to get downfield. Launches the throw down toward the goal line. Going up. Ball tipped in the air. Caught! Touchdown! Jordan Westerkamp! Nebraska wins the game on the final play of the contest! Oh, baby!
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! What a scene in Lincoln, baby! Woo!
Deep for Nebraska. Here's Wiley's kick. Gets high. It holds up there. Rogers takes the ball at the 30. He's hit and got away. Back upfield to the 35, to the 40. He's to the 45. He's to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 20, to the 10. He's all the way home. Holy moly. Man, woman, and child did that. Put him in the aisle. Johnny the Jet Rogers just tore them loose from their shoes.
That just ends abruptly, doesn't it?
I love
Welcome,
it, man.
everybody.
Great intro.
It was, all of those plays are back from when we were really good.
Yeah, you might have to go a little bit farther to find the Maryland ones. The Maryland really, really good highlights.
So, welcome to 5 Points of Contact, everybody. It's our weekly preview show in which we preview our upcoming game with one of our opponents, people that know more than we do about our opponent. And our opponent this week is the Maryland Terrapins. I'm joined by Emmett Siegel of Testudo Times, which is the SBNation Maryland site. And the first thing you're going to do is teach me how to say Tua's brother's name.
Okay, so we'll start with the first name. It's pretty simple. It's Talia. So emphasis on the Leah. That's what people call
Talia.
Talia.
Talia. That's it.
And then
Every time I see this
syllables.
written, it just like 14 vowels in it, and I have no idea what to do with it.
If you were
Talia.
to accidentally call him Tua in a press conference, I can assure you that you would not be the first person to do so.
So
then if you want to venture into the last name, or do you want to jump ahead?
Talia is good enough. I mean, everybody's going to know who we're talking about. That is
Right.
the guy that makes everything go for Maryland, isn't it? Isn't he?
He's certainly the face of the team. He's definitely the most well-known player of the team. And, naturally with the quarterback position, I would say, like the head coach has said, like a lot of his teammates have said, the team kind of goes as Talia goes. And the team has not been going in the right direction recently. And you can't attribute that all to Talia, but it's certainly a factor for sure.
So, what is going on over there? You guys started 5-0. And now you've dropped your last 4. And this weekend is going to be the meeting of 2 5-4 teams. One of those teams is going to be bowl eligible and happy. And the other one's going to be, filled with anxiety and dread. Is that a good summation of what we're looking at here?
I think it is. Unfortunately, I think Maryland might already be there. I think these
Really?
last 4 games have been really, really frustrating for the Maryland fans. I know I've seen the last couple of weeks, we've seen some good meltdowns in the comment sections. And yeah, it's been pretty brutal. I mean, you lose to Ohio State to start the losing streak, which is, you lose to Ohio State. There's really no shame in that. They were actually pretty competitive for 3 quarters.
Right.
But then you lose on homecoming to Illinois, who at the time hadn't won a Big Ten game yet. Then you lose on the road at Northwestern after the bye week, which you had assumed was going to be a win. And then Penn State comes to town and just wallops you. Everything's kind of going wrong for Maryland right now. They're kind of trying to hold it together and get to the 6-win mark. This seems like on paper, maybe their best chance to do it, but going to Nebraska, going to Memorial Stadium is like, that's no easy task. And I think the spread is like a pick 'em right now. I think a lot of people are losing a lot of confidence in this Maryland team, to be totally honest.
So why has it gone so wrong? I mean, let's face it, losing to Northwestern. I mean, we beat Illinois, we beat Northwestern. I'm shocked that Northwestern has won as many games as they had because I expected them to collapse. Well, last week we lost to Michigan State. We were their first Big Ten win, and you don't know what's going on with our team. But why has it gone so downhill? Do you think?
It's been kind of a confluence of things. The defense, which looked really good at the start of the season, has been picked apart. Injuries were part of that, but against Northwestern, whose starting quarterback was out, their backup quarterback was dicing up Maryland's secondary. He threw for I think close to 300 yards, had a couple touchdowns. Penn State's offense, which obviously super talented, especially with the running backs, but Penn State's offense is not explosive. At least it hadn't shown to be explosive. Maryland allowed them to have probably their best performance of the season, at least recently. Last week against Illinois, which couldn't get anything going. That they were able to move the ball. And once again, Ohio State's kind of an anomaly with how talented they are and Marvin Harrison and all that. But yeah, the defense has not been playing well. The offense has really lacked explosive plays. They're not running the ball very often. Against Penn State, they threw the ball, I think, 40 times and ran it. I want to say they handed the ball off 7 times for negative yardage. So they're kind of straying from what made them successful last year, which was running the ball, play action, deep shots with Talia, being able to get the ball in your skill position players' hands. It's just like nothing's working for them right now. They're trying to push all the buttons, but kind of just getting the same result.
Yeah, I saw the negative 49 yards rushing against Penn State. Talia got sacked several times, which contributed to that. I thought Mike at the beginning of this year, I pointed out that, when we do our previews for the season, I pointed out that, Mike Loxley has done a good job at Maryland. He's been building the program. They've been getting better. They just need to beat one of the top 3 teams and just get over that hump. And now it looks like it's a giant step back. I mean, how does everybody feel about Mike Loxley?
There was kind of a sentiment among a lot of people that Mike Loxley was the perfect guy for Maryland, at least when they hired him, just because he was hired. The program was in complete turmoil. DJ Durkin was fired. They had a player die in practice, and it was the university president had to resign. It was a complete disaster. And Mike Loxley steadied the ship, started building up the talent level. He had a reputation, still kind of has it, as like an ace recruiter, especially in the DMV area. So he's able to keep a lot of the top guys around. You see, some really highly rated recruits. He had a recruiting class in 2021 that I want to say was top 20 nationally. The caveat to that is that pretty much everyone from that class transferred, but it was still, a good harbinger of what could come. But then you started to see NIL comes along, which hurts Maryland a lot because Maryland is not very competitive in the NIL space. But they still have a talented team going into this year, and expectations were very high. Partially, burdening Mike Loxley was kind of burdened by his own expectations. They had improved their win total each of the last 2 years. They had won 7 games in the regular season last year, then won a bowl game to get to 8. This year, it felt like outside of the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, that they would at least be favored in pretty much every other game, but it has not gone to plan at all. And you're starting to see some more conversations be had about, is Mike Loxley the right guy moving forward for the team? Because you haven't seen any improvement. I mean, Maryland, this is before Loxley as well, but since Maryland joined the Big Ten like 10 seasons ago, they haven't beaten a ranked opponent within the conference. So, it's at a certain point, you have to start narrowing that gap before you have to start looking elsewhere and wondering if Maryland has the right guy at the top to keep them really competitive moving forward.
So tell us how we talked before we started that it's now, basketball season started Monday night, and Nebraska really doesn't pay much attention at all to men's basketball, particularly. How does Maryland view basketball versus football?
So basketball is the biggest sport at the University of Maryland. I mean, the football is like it's a big deal. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's it's an ACC school historically, but it's still Big Ten football, and Maryland still really cares about football. But the best way I describe it, because we do have obviously a lot of conversations about this kind of stuff when we're talking about how we're gonna cover everything for the site and
Right.
what we're gonna promote and everything. The best way I can describe it is that when football and basketball, March aside, because March is kind of its own beast, when football and basketball are in their own seasons, it's kind of the same fan base. But when they're both being played at the same time, basketball takes priority because Maryland is, for all intents and purposes, a basketball school, even though they've prioritized football financially recently. They built this huge, beautiful $200 million football facility, and they happened to finish it right when NIL came along and no one cared about facilities anymore, which kind of hindered them a little bit. But Maryland is at its heart a basketball school. You have a national championship in the past 20 years. You have a couple Final Fours. Even though they haven't necessarily been at that level recently, still one of the top 25-ish programs in the country. So the ceiling is so much higher for Maryland basketball than compared to what it is for football that I think fans just get a lot more invested in it. That's not to say that they don't care about football, though. Maryland fans do care a lot about football. I just get the sense that around here you have two NFL teams, and those kind of drive a lot of the football conversation.
Okay, before we actually get into the team stuff, I asked, I pointed out in the comments section that they're usually quiet. They're usually going back and forth and asking all sorts of questions, and they're not doing that this time. We're on the verge of going to a bowl if we beat Maryland. That's our goal for the season. And Dion Pryor responds, "We are chill now." What the hell are you guys doing in the comments section being chill? I don't get it. This year has been the most bizarre year for Nebraska because in football, there's not been a lot of buzz about football. I think it's that people have, Minnie says, ask him about their wide receivers, please. We'll get there, Minnie. People have been very quiet compared to what they usually are. I mean, we're doing fairly well with the YouTube support and stuff like that. But the Nebraska fan bases, their tickets are available for this game for like $9 a piece. That's unheard of.
Crazy because I know that at Maryland, all anyone can talk about when it comes to football games is how hard it is for them to get fans out. I mean, last week was the first quote unquote, I'm using quotes here, sellout of the season. And it's about a 50,000 seat stadium. I would estimate there are probably 30,000 Penn State fans there. And I know Nebraska has that famous sellout streak and everything. That's very actually surprising for me to hear.
Well, that's a sellout streak. It doesn't mean butts in the seat. And I had tickets to the Maryland game. I was going to go. I lost a transmission in my Jeep this week, and it's really kind of screwed everything up. So I live in Minnesota, actually. But all right. Let's go. We got Talia, the quarterback, and he's everybody I think knows who he is. Does anybody in the comment sections doesn't know who Talia Tagovailoa?
So it's a little tricky, but it's so say like tongue, like the in your mouth, tongue of Viola. It's kind of a
Viola. Oh my God.
It's a tricky one. You can just say Talia or Leah.
I will go with Talia. Okay. You got Talia, the quarterback. That's a pretty much set guy. He's the guy at quarterback. He can throw the ball. He's mobile. And what do you have for an offensive line? Let's start there.
So last year, Maryland's offensive line was one of the most experienced they had in a long time. They returned every starter from the year before. This year is about the complete opposite. They returned one starter. They lost a couple guys to graduation. They had two guys drafted into the NFL. They had another starter transfer, and they had a guy who was probably going to be a starter transfer as well. So they brought in some FCS, some D2 transfers to plug into starting roles. Their left tackle is their only returning starting offensive lineman from last year. He's probably their most sure piece there, but otherwise it's kind of been like plug and play. They're still, what is this? This is the 10th game of the season. They're still kind of trying to figure out how to make that unit work. Has not been all too impressive, been a little bit better, I would say, at least in pass protection, maybe in recent weeks, but has not impressed the way that maybe last year they were able to run the ball really effectively. And this year, running the ball has been a chore for them. They have not been able to run the ball with any sort of efficiency.
Hence the 40 passes and 7 rushes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And
So
especially because Josh Gaddis is their offensive coordinator, who, at least when he was at Michigan, obviously different personnel, but when he was at Michigan, had a reputation for like everything is through the run game. Now it's like the complete opposite.
So are your running backs, are they healthy? Are they decent? They just don't have holes to run through, or what's the deal?
That's what my diagnosis would be. I mean, they are a good running back group. Last year, Roman Hemby, who was the lead back, rushed for almost 1,000 yards in his first. He redshirted his first year, so that was his first full year starting. And then Antoine Littleton is a bigger back, but he was really effective as well. You have a couple guys that you would think rely on. I mean, people were talking about Roman Hemby as potential All Big Ten kind of player this year. It has not at all panned out. They're not even giving him the ball, and when he's getting the ball, he has nowhere to go, pretty much.
So that leads us to receivers.
Yeah.
Tell us about the receivers.
So a lot of turnover there too. Maryland has developed a reputation, at least locally, of kind of like a good place where you can go if you are like an elite recruit or something like that, that they can put you in the NFL as a receiver. And they can thank Stephon Diggs for that, and DJ Moore as well. But, last year you had Rakim Jarrett, who's a 5-star recruit, Dante Demas, who was really, really good when healthy, but he's coming back from an injury. You had Jacob Copeland. I'm just naming names now, but all those guys are gone now. This year, it's a lot of new faces, and then one familiar face, Jayshon Jones, is still on the team. It's his 6th year. He's had a couple injuries. He's kind of the leader of that group. But then Caden Prather is a transfer from West Virginia, who's probably their best deep ball threat. He's probably been about their most productive wide receiver so far this year. And then you got other guys like Ty Felton, Octavian Smith, Shalik Knotts. These are like younger guys that are being elevated into bigger roles. Ty Felton's had some problems holding on to the ball. But they had another transfer come in, Tyrese Chambers. He's no longer with the team. He quit the team during the bye week. He had his reasons, but he's no longer with the team. So they haven't been necessarily as dynamic and gotten as much hype as maybe in recent years. Maryland fans were even trolling like the LSUs of the world, which they're not on that level, but trolling them is like, we're the real wide receiver. That is not the case, at least not this year. But it's certainly a talented group. It's probably, if I had to say, probably their deepest position group on offense, at least.
So you have the quarterback, you have the receivers.
Yeah.
Why so many sacks against Penn State? I mean, why did they just blitz, or your offensive line just can't block 4 or 5, or what's the deal there?
It's probably a little bit twofold in that they threw the ball a ton. So there's a lot of dropbacks because they were playing from behind. And then also you have like the deadly combination of an offensive line that really has not impressed and has been kind of trying to figure itself out versus, I mean, arguably the best defensive front in the country. One of them that was even missing. I mean, maybe their top edge rusher, Chop Robinson, didn't even play in that game. He was part of that 2021 Maryland recruiting class I was talking about, and they transferred to Penn State. He didn't even play, but Penn State's defensive front is so good at generating pressure that it was just kind of a deadly combination, and Talia was kind of scrambling for his life back there.
Okay, before we get to the defense, let's see. Travis Turner comes in with not sure how to feel about this game, really close, leaning toward an L at this point. This is the mentality of Husker fans. We're all beat up from the Scott Frost years. We shouldn't have lost. Everybody, I'm speaking for me. Everybody, including me and the turd in my pocket, thought there was no chance of us losing to Michigan State, and we lost. And it shattered a lot of our souls. Okay, me and the turd in my pocket when I'm speaking in plural, probably. But, that's where we're at. Moonbot 7 says, I think Maryland is like CU, Colorado. I'm picking them to beat us. See how damaged we are here?
I'm not sensing a ton of optimism right now.
Yeah, it's you'd think we'd be homers. Deion Pryor again. Maryland has a good offense. Well, I guess we're going to find out. James Boardman says, isn't that a Donnie Iris song, Tolia? You're not old enough. It was
I don't
Aaliyah.
think I am. I think the one went right over my head.
Aaliyah. It was like it's a lesser known 80s song. It was a pretty good song though. Let's see. Carl Pence. The problem with Maryland is their mascot. Huskers have Herbie and Little Red. What the hell is a terrapin?
It's a turtle. It's a turtle, a diamondback terrapin. It's like from the Chesapeake Bay area.
Is there something special about it for people that don't know? We don't play Maryland a lot, you know?
Yeah. Maybe more of the divisions are going away, but it's just some snapping turtle from the area. I think like some former school president just liked it or something like that. There's a couple statues of it on campus.
Husker JPEG says Maryland will be a lot faster than Nebraska. It will be a long day unless Rule and Satterfield figured out how to commit to making a run game go to play keep away from Maryland. 60 runs, 10 passes. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit more. So defense. Whoop, let me get that comment off there. Defense. How's the defensive line?
Probably a little bit better than anticipated. It seems like I'm kind of saying this about every position, but they lost, a lot of their guys from last year on that group. Some veteran guys, maybe that weren't like super, super productive, but were at least familiar. But they've been all right. I would say I didn't really expect much at all from them, and they've been able to generate a little bit of pressure at least. One guy to keep an eye on is Donnell Brown. He was an FCS transfer that made the jump, and he's been really impactful. And then you got a couple other guys that, I don't need to list all the names, but on the interior of the line, they're all right. It's nothing to write home about. It's kind of like it'll do the job kind of group. But I'd say their defensive pressure has been a little bit better than expected, but nothing that's going to like win them a game. They're not going to go out and get 6-7 sacks in a game.
What do you guys run for a base? Is it 4-3?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, linebackers and defensive backs. Tell me you have the worst pass defense in the nation. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the secondary, I'll start there. The secondary, their top two corners were both drafted last year, so they had a lot to replace. They brought back Tarheeb Still, who is probably their nickel corner last year, who's back playing a lot more outside now. They brought in a transfer, Jaquan Shepard, who was like an all-conference guy at Cincinnati. He has not been all too great, to be totally honest with you. Their cornerbacks have been just okay. And then their safeties were coming. Also, both those guys are back from last year. They're two starters, Bo Braid and Dante Trader. Dante Trader, interesting story. He also plays lacrosse for the school. But those two guys are back. Bo Braid has that potential to be like really, really good. But like you said, like they have not been that great this year. They've been battling injury, but even so, the secondary hasn't been too special. And then the linebacker group, you have some really good players in there. Like Jayshawn Barham is only a sophomore. He's the kind of guy that I would totally expect to play in the NFL. Last year, he was a freshman All-American, like really, really, really good player. And he's been decent, but he plays more on the interior. So he's, his stats don't necessarily jump out. I don't know why they don't put him outside more. We've asked Loxley about this a couple times. He's been very adamant that they don't want to do that. But he's pretty effective when he gets out in space because he's an incredible athlete. And then you got a couple other like older guys, veteran guys, seniors, fifth-year players kind of filling that spot. But other than Barham, the linebacker group is, they're kind of rotating a lot of guys in there, and it's kind of just, plug and play to be totally frank.
So what worries you about this game? I mean, where do you first, let me ask this. What's your impression of Nebraska going into this game?
I mean, my impression, obviously from afar, because Maryland and Nebraska, like you said, don't play all too often, so they're not super familiar with each other. But my impression from Nebraska is, you got new leadership, obviously, so maybe a little bit energized there, but off to not off to like an amazing season. But in the Big Ten West, I kind of from the perspective of a team in the Big Ten East, I kind of view a lot of the Big Ten West teams as like very similar to each other. It seems like there's like a ton of parity and anyone can beat anyone there. But I don't know.
That's a
Maybe I'm a
nice
little
way.
bit.
That's a nice way of saying we all suck.
I don't think you all suck. I don't want to say that.
Wow.
But,
Okay.
yeah, I don't believe that. But no, I think Nebraska and Maryland are like very different teams, but the kind of teams that like probably match up pretty well together, and it should be a close game. I honestly, I mean, I know that all of the Nebraska fans, at least in the comments, were saying how they have no confidence in this game. I don't think you could find a Maryland fan that has a ton of confidence in this game. So I think whoever wins is going to be really surprised that their team actually won a game. To be totally honest.
Oh my God. You realize Nebraska's offense can't score.
Yeah, well, it seems like Maryland's the team that every time, at least over this stretch, that every team they play, at least on the TV broadcast, the commentators are like, "This is the best game that the opposing quarterback has played in his career." Like it seems like Maryland's the team. Like if you need a get right game, that's what they've been the last couple weeks.
Okay, well, when it comes to Nebraska, here's the thing. Our defense, gosh, excuse me. I think our defense is very good. They've been early on in the season, they started playing like 25 guys a game. So the defense has, they're well-rounded. They have a number of players that can just fit into rules and know what they're doing. It was shocking to Michigan State that we gave up some explosive plays because all year long we've given up very few. Tony Wyatt, our defensive coordinator this week, actually got angry with his defense and said they played like, they didn't play well. And he was very, he used the word bullcrap, I think, if I remember right. But the thing is we only gave up 20 points to Michigan State. I mean, if you looked at it anywhere out there and said your team's going to give up 20 points, you would go, oh, well, we probably win. But no, Nebraska's offense can't score. So we didn't win against Michigan State. Biggest, well, put it this way. We lost our 2 top running backs. We've lost, I think, our top 3 or 4 wide receivers. We've lost 3 offensive linemen. I think there's only 2 guys that are left that are starters from the original 11 that we started the season with. And our quarterback, to say that he's a work in progress is, well, it's, if being kind was right here, it's right here. So, that's the problem with Nebraska. So I think if you go into this game, I mean, you probably pegged it right. We're all going to be watching this game, which is on Peacock. What do you think of that?
So I don't know if we'll all be watching it, but a lot of us will at least.
I know a lot of Nebraska fans that are up in arms about the Peacock thing, because of the whole streaming. I got to pay another $6. You can get a trial, whatever. But that's a big thing to us because everybody does at least watch the games. And this, I think I mentioned to you before the show that you could get tickets for $9. Well, we brought it up already. Okay, we went through the offense, we went through the defense. Anything on special teams?
Maryland's punter's pretty good, Colton Spangler. He's a very solid punter. The return game has been pretty unnoteworthy. Punt returns have been, they're just kind of fair catching the ball. They had 1 kickoff return for a touchdown earlier in the season against Virginia. It was a freshman, Braden Wisloski. It was like a 100-yard return. That was pretty cool, but they're not really kicking the ball. Nowadays everyone just kind of lets it go out of the end zone. And then their kicker, last year they had an amazing kicker, Chad Ryland, who's now kicking for the Patriots. He was an incredible kicker, one of the best in the country. This year their kicker is Jack Howes. He's got a pretty strong leg, but he's incredibly inconsistent. He'll go out, he'll shank a 30-yarder, and then he'll drill a 48-yarder with 15 yards to spare. He's kind of like an enigma is the best way to describe him. The special teams unit isn't all too noteworthy, other than the fact that their punter's, pretty reliable.
Well, I'd say for us, let's see. Well, we rarely return the punts. I mean, here's the thing. Michigan State, we have a guy named Billy Kemp. He's one of our probably best players, but he's injured. But they still put him out there to fair catch the ball. And, a couple times he fair caught it inside the 10 when there's like nobody around him. So you're kind of like, what the hell are you doing? And then, of course, our crappy offense, they can't score and can't keep possession of the ball. They just can't run very well. They can't throw very well. We can all make fun of Iowa's offense, but I don't know. The Iowa Nebraska game is going to be like 3-4 or something. That's literally going to be the score of the game, and it's going to
I was telling some people this this week because I think it's hilarious. The Iowa Northwestern game. They had the over under in the 20s when it finished. I was curious during the fourth quarter. I just went on to I forget what site, but I went on just to see what the live over under was in the fourth quarter. And it was 7.5 for the entire game in the fourth quarter. So I don't know it. I know you're not confident about your offense, but it might be kind of insulting to put them in the same realm as Iowa. I mean, what is that?
I mean, we scored 31 points against Purdue. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the thing about this team is, last week I think they kind of played flat. They looked very flat. And I don't think they played well, but against Purdue, they did score 31 points. I don't know. So we don't know what to expect. And I think that's the key with everybody being a little freaky. Special teams for us, like I said, Billy Kemp goes back there and normally we do a lot of fair catching. We do, on the other hand, we go after the punter a lot of the times. We haven't been successful except for once blocking a punt. We have blocked a field goal and returned that for a touchdown. Let's see. Our field goal kicker, Tristan Alvano, true freshman, struggled earlier in the year, but he recently made a 55-yard field goal. And, so I think it's a little bit, well, good grief, it's inconsistent. So yeah. I don't know what else to say about Nebraska. I don't know. We usually go for an hour. Everybody's really quiet. And
maybe
we're gonna
byproduct of the times, the way each team is trending.
Well, that is true, but wow, I'm shocked. Mike Fitz says any creative play calling signs we should look out for.
Is that a Connor Stallions reference?
I think it might be a Connor Stallions reference, but it might also be, do you guys run trick plays, that kind of stuff?
Not too often. I feel like if I'm remembering correctly, I think there's been a couple of flea flickers run against Maryland. But I don't think Maryland doesn't get too creative. Last year they threw a ton of screen passes. I know a lot of people are really upset about that. Kind of like the mentality of like get the ball in your best player's hands. This year it hasn't been too creative. They're throwing the ball deep, probably more than they should, just because Talia is not a great deep ball thrower, and they have guys that are fast and can get open downfield, but I haven't really seen them convert. Like I can't remember the last time I saw Talia convert a pass that had more than 30 air yards on it. So
really.
Maryland's offense has like super explosive players. They haven't really shown it recently, though.
Okay. Oh, good grief. Let's go. Nebraska strong. Go Big Red says 35-10 blowout W for Big Red as long as Sloppy Sims stays on the bench. We have a quarterback, our starting quarterback to begin the year, Jeff Sims. He basically threw away the Minnesota game. What was that score in that? 13-10. And he had, I don't know how many turnovers, 3 or 4 crucial, horrifying turnovers. Threw one ball directly to Minnesota when we were at the 1 yard line. But everybody now can't stand him. He came into, oh my God, not this week, but the week before he came into the game, and the only points scored were him getting tackled and being stripped of the ball, which was then taken for a scoop and score. So, I don't know. Again, it's I'm not sure we're all lost in Nebraska. Basketball season. Yeah.
Turnovers are a thing with Maryland's quarterback as well. The thing about Talia is that his turnover numbers have gotten a little bit better over the past 2 years, but I've never seen a player only turn the ball over in high leverage situations as much as he does. Like against Northwestern, despite playing terribly, not necessarily him, but just the team playing terribly the whole game, they managed to get, they were driving down the field with less than 2 minutes left. He threw an interception to end that game. Against Penn State, they were kind of hanging around, and then a couple straight turnovers. It just completely gets out of hand. That's kind of the story with Talia, is that everyone's kind of like waiting for the mistake to happen because you know it's going to come. He is kind of turnover prone. His decision making isn't always the best. I mean, last year and the year before that, it was much, much worse. But I mean, I don't know if Nebraska's defense is amazing at generating turnovers, but if it is, that's something that could really screw Maryland over, especially later.
I
in
think
the game.
the problem is it's hard to tell.
Yeah, a lot of it's like luck based too.
I think that our defense is good at, we're very good at stopping the run. We've been very good at overall defense, but tackles for loss, sacks. One thing we have not been great at is takeaways. 3 turnovers against Michigan State. I don't think we picked up one from them. But that is one area which our defense could improve a lot. So is this Talia's last year?
So, I think everyone thinks it is. There's a little bit of, the COVID year, people are a little bit confused about it. I'm pretty sure this is his last year. This is his 5th year of college. He had a red shirt in there too. So he might technically have another year left, but I anticipate that this is his final year of college football.
You expect him to get drafted high?
I don't expect him to get drafted high. There's a chance. Maybe
there's a lot of quarterbacks this year
rounds, but to be totally honest, I don't think he's a great pro prospect. He's a pretty solid college quarterback, especially compared to what Maryland's had, at least for the last 30 something years. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. They had a linebacker playing quarterback throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs about 10 years ago. A linebacker was their starting quarterback. So, Talia he's statistically the best quarterback in Maryland history. There's a lot of people that would dispute if he actually is, but he's a good college quarterback. I don't think his brother, he's not his brother. His brother is a surefire, great NFL
right.
They're very different
players. What do you expect out of this game?
I expect it to be pretty close. I do. I think that it's Maryland can score. We know that Maryland can score, but we also know Nebraska has a good defense. We know that Maryland's defense has not played all too well, but Nebraska's offense has not played too well either. So I expect it to be close until the end. I think it probably, like I said, comes down to turnovers, just who makes fewer mistakes, because Maryland's really been killing itself recently with some of the mistakes with, penalties are a problem. Turnovers in key moments are a problem. I mean, it's also like the time that they happen, like against Penn State, they go for it on 4th down on the first drive, and then Penn State scores. But then like a couple drives later, they're driving down the field with a chance to tie it, and they fumble it inside the 20-yard line. It's stuff like that. It's opportunistic mistakes that have really killed Maryland. So I get the sense that this game will be close, and that it'll probably come down to who makes the big play in the 4th quarter to win.
Okay, Panfilo 2 says, what is Maryland's run game like? And I think what we're hearing from Emmett is their run game is pretty much non-existent, just because, they don't have an offensive line like ours to open holes, and they do have talented wide receivers and a quarterback that can get him the ball if he's not under pressure. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they have good running backs. I'm not sure they have what they need around them to give them space and stuff like that.
All right. I'm going to take a couple more comments. Let's see. Minnie says, I'm so excited to see our defense take the field after TW, Tony White, that's our defensive coordinator, said he was going to unleash them.
Unleash them, wow.
Yeah, unleash them. I wasn't aware that he kept them leashed before because, compare it to the guy we fired, the previous regime. What you see from Nebraska's defense is you see guys swarming to the ball, and it used to be in the past where you'd have one guy in space, the other team would beat our one guy, there'd be nobody else there. Now there's usually a bunch of guys there. They get good pressure on the quarterback. At the beginning of the season, I would say that our defensive line, most people have said this about Nebraska at the beginning of the season. Our defensive line doesn't have enough depth, and it'll be a real concern because teams will be able to run the ball. That's been completely blown up because the defensive line has played very well with the guys they have played incredible. and people haven't been able to run the ball at all against us. I mean, except for Michigan, because they knew all the plays ahead of time, obviously.
Exactly. That's the only reason. Funny story about that.
Yeah.
So we, Maryland plays Michigan next week. So Maryland hasn't played Michigan in this whole, scandal situation. But, Maryland obviously has lost to Michigan all but one time since joining the conference. But we had an opportunity to talk to Talia instead of at the podium just after practice. It was more casual. And there were only like 2 or 3 people there, me being one of them. And we asked him what he thought about the Michigan sign stealing thing. And I don't know if he was being honest or not, but he claimed he had no idea. He was like, "Oh, what happened at Michigan?" We explained it to him. And then his response was, "Well, I hope that's why they beat us." And I'm not sure I didn't have the guts to tell him that might not have been the reason. But yeah, that aside.
Well, what was the score? 42-7. Nebraska played really flat against them. In fact, our coach after the game basically said, "You guys played so disinterested. We're going to practice on Sunday in full pads." And he told the scout team, "Don't take it easy on them. Go kill them. We're not doing this anymore. If you guys are going to play that kind of football, then we're going to give everybody a chance at starting positions." And it really made a difference to them. I mean, you could see that. I think the next week they played Illinois and they had a goal line stand at the foot line. And that was the turnaround, I think, for our defense. The offense is it's a mess. In fact, here's one guy that says, Nebraska strong, go Big Red, says Satterfield needs to absolutely be fired. The play calling against Michigan State was poop or shit. I don't know what that is. It's an emoji. It's the only emoji I really understand. You know what I mean?
Right.
I will say this. We're always anxious to fire coaches. I don't think anybody likes their offensive coordinators. I've said that several times. I don't know what anybody expects from Satterfield. I mean, he's lost so many players. He doesn't have a quarterback. He's lost 2 running backs he was going to depend upon to hopefully gain yardage to begin the year. And not only that, if we fire our offensive coordinator, that would make 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years. And that's not really any way to build consistency in a program. And if you want to, I guess I don't get the hate for Satterfield. It just sounds silly to me.
Well, Maryland's offensive coordinator last year was Dan Enos, and he lasted 8 games at Arkansas. So, maybe they made the right decision to let him go.
What, didn't they just beat like Florida for the first time in their school's history at Florida in the swamp or something after
like
they
that,
let him go?
He got fired after they lost a game. I think it was 7-3. So I don't know. Well, maybe when Nebraska loses 7-3, maybe you could start ramping up the conversations.
Okay. Same guy, Nebraska strong, go Big Red. We are going to get several sacks against their very weak protection. Did they do anything to avoid that? He's mobile, right? Do they roll him out a lot?
Talia's really good at evading pressure. He does this. He always like spins to his back shoulder. He has like this one move where he rolls out left. Does that all the time. He is mobile. He doesn't scramble downfield all too often. But I don't totally disagree that I think Nebraska will probably generate a decent amount of pressure and probably get a couple sacks on him. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Aaron Rastafasti. By the way, this is one of our baseball writers at CornNation, says Sat is coaching a scheme he barely knows with a second string offense. He's doing an amazing job. Do you guys cover baseball?
We do. Yeah. We try to cover pretty much every sport.
Okay. Because when that comes right, Nebraska loves our baseball. We don't, like I said, we do cover a lot of men's basketball. I want to see us cover more cover men's basketball, even though it doesn't generate the clicks. If we were doing this for a living, we probably would barely cover it, honestly. But before we go, I'm going to ask you, what do you think of your basketball team? But Minnie comes in and says, I'm excited to see Malachi against this defense. Nebraska does have some young wide receivers, Jaden Doss and Malachi Coleman, 2 of them very fast. Malachi Coleman is very freakishly athletic, but he's also young, so he hasn't played very much. Well, here's another one for Nebraska. Strong, go Big Red. Emmett, do you think Maryland will load up the box against Nebraska to stop a run and make us throw the ball?
I think that, if what you all are saying about, Nebraska really not being able to move the ball through the air is true, and especially if Nebraska's offensive line is pretty solid, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Maryland's secondary, I wasn't too complimentary of it. It's not bad. It's good enough to hold up, against a lot of teams, and it actually held up very well against even Ohio State until Marvin Harrison Jr. decided to, become Marvin Harrison Jr. in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I would expect that Maryland's really just kind of looking for like anything to get back on track right now, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they just start, trying to push every button they possibly can, and switch up the defense, whatever it may be.
So who do you have left after us?
Michigan and then Rutgers on the road. Michigan's at home.
What do you think? I'm obviously Michigan. The whole sign stealing thing has been, it's been shocking, I guess, for me. I always looked at Michigan and I kind of believed the Michigan man bullshit about we're high integrity. Right. I'm 61 freaking years old. You'd think I'd be smarter than this, but no, not until this year. Now it's completely destroyed. Every time I hear the phrase Michigan, I'll think that I need to put my wallet in my front pocket, not my back. But what do you think of that whole situation? I mean, you're going to have to play them after us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love it because I love the theater of it, and it's one of my favorite parts about college football is just the unseriousness of a lot of it. I think it's hilarious, like the whole Connor Stalions thing. If that actually was him on the Central Michigan sideline, or I don't know if you saw this most recent report today that he was running some sort of vacuum business out of his house or something, and Blake Corum maybe was involved. Whatever it is, I think it's hilarious. I think that whether or not it actually gave him a competitive advantage, it's still Michigan. They're still super, super talented. Like, I think I don't know how much it actually helped them on the field. I kind of do buy to a certain extent, the lone wolf aspect of it, where I'm sure Harbaugh knew about it, but I don't get the sense that this was like their secret, because to be totally honest, they're probably not the only team that's doing something like that. I'm more interested.
They built a spy network. They built it like a whole spy network, man.
It's really, really, really funny. That's my biggest takeaway from it, is that and this was a really good column that was written in the Washington Post by Stephen Godfrey, if you're familiar with him. He wrote a really, really good column, which was like, Michigan, regardless of their punishment, their biggest punishment is that they can no longer say that they're the ones doing it the right way and call everyone else the cheaters. Because now, like you said, like Michigan man is synonymous with some, used vacuum salesman filming sidelines. So that's kind of where I stand on it, to be totally honest. I don't think it affects their play on the field that much.
I keep thinking I sell t-shirts. I sell this hoodie. This is my icon, Cobby Corns. I keep thinking that I should come up with a Michigan t-shirt.
I'm sure there's no shortage of ideas, I'm sure.
There isn't, but you know what? I just thought of it. The whole vacuum thing. Do you remember Spaceballs?
I saw it when I was much younger. And
okay, well, at some point in the movie, I think it's Dark Helmet, who is supposed to be like Darth Vader. Rick Moranis, I think, doesn't he turn and he says, it's time to turn from blow to suck. That's it. I'm thinking Jim Harbaugh on a t-shirt with a vacuum. We've gone from blow to suck. There you go.
I'm sure if you can tap into the Ohio State market, you'll be rich. You won't have to do this podcast anymore.
But I'd love it. That's the thing.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay. She's gone from suck to blow. There you go. Aaron, our baseball writer, got that in there. Okay. Nebraska strong as if Huskers lose, John has to wear a Maryland t-shirt for the whole week. I don't have any Maryland t-shirts anymore. My own
in terms of Big Ten schools that have the crossover. I don't think the Maryland brand has made it out to Minnesota or Nebraska yet. I think we probably still got some years before that happens.
So do you regret this? the ACC to Big Ten jump?
I think like for years, Maryland fans did nothing but complain about it. You couldn't see it. You couldn't have any discussion about Maryland without hearing someone complain about how they should be in the ACC because they were, a founding member of the ACC. They had some real rivalries in there. But now you're sitting here looking at like conference realignment and everything, and it was the luckiest decision they ever made. It might have saved the athletic department. They were cutting sports and everything. They were in huge debt, and I think they still probably are in a little bit of debt. I'm not sure if there's an athletic department that isn't, but in retrospect, it was the right decision because if they were still in the ACC, they would be begging to be let into the Big Ten right now.
So I have to ask this. Well, how has it affected basketball, do you think? You guys are competitive in basketball. I think, for us, I guess I pay attention to men's basketball. I think last year's game against Maryland was a fun game. We're not that great. This year, we're supposed to have a better team. I refuse to believe it until I actually see it happen because I've heard this for so many years, and we're still the only team in power. Power, what is it now? 6? Is it still power 6?
I think in basketball, people say 6, but
yeah,
kind of up for
we're the only team that hasn't won an NCAA tourney game. You guys continue. You've won the Big Ten in baseball last year. How do you think it's affected your baseball program, if at all?
ACC baseball is, probably second only to the SEC. Maybe the Big 12 is in there as well. But Maryland baseball has like become really, really good. Actually, they've been putting guys, getting drafted recently, making regionals. Coincidentally, their only 2 times they've ever advanced out of a regional was when they had an ACC caliber team and they played in the Big Ten for like 2 years. So they were able to stack a lot of wins, but they're good now. I don't know if that's because they joined the Big Ten or what it is, but at least results wise, they've been about as good as they've ever been the last couple of years.
All right. We'll probably wrap it up. If you guys have any more comments, get them in. We will still, Greg and I will still be doing the 5 Heart podcast on Thursday nights. Wednesday night, I'm still trying to do previews with our opponents. We have Wisconsin and Iowa left. Wisconsin's shocking loss to Indiana. I don't even know. That's the thing. The Big Ten West is just like, what the hell are you doing this week? Are you going to show up sober to these games and play? Or what the hell?
Sometimes it doesn't look like they are, to be totally honest. But it's beautiful, though, right? It's college football in a nutshell.
That's
like
true.
The top of the Big Ten West and the top of the Big Ten East are like stylistically, they couldn't be any more different. But they're going to have to play for the championship, right?
Do you want to make a prediction
for this Saturday? Sure.
Yes.
To be totally honest, I think I left the Penn State game kind of thinking that Maryland is going to end its season on a 7-game losing streak. It's really felt like that. But I do think this game's going to be close. Maryland on the road, the way they've been playing right now, I'm not sure I totally trust them. So I'll say Nebraska wins, but I could see it going either way. I'll say Nebraska wins first score. I'll say it's pretty low scoring, like maybe 20 to 17, something in that realm. But I can see a scenario where Maryland wins. I think this is like a 50-50 game, to be totally honest.
Right. I agree with you on that. I think it all comes down to how much we turn the ball over, and we turn the ball over a lot, unfortunately. I'll go with Nebraska. I think what did I say, 24-10 against Michigan State, and that sure as hell didn't work. This one's going to be like 21-17, and Nebraska fans will once again age 15 years in the fourth quarter. So, well, I'll be okay. Nebraska Strong, Go Big Red, who's taken over the comments, says, Emmett, will you wear a CornNation t-shirt and Huskers hat if the Huskers win? I think the thing
you have express shipping. Could I get it in time?
No, that's the problem is we do print on demand. So we do have express shipping, but it does take, the orders do take a while. The thing is, Nebraska Strong, he's not a Big Ten West guy, and we don't see him all the time. Which, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I mean, like I said at the beginning, Both of these teams are 5-4. One of them after the weekend is going to be in a bowl eligible. And we're not counting 5-7 as bowl eligible, even though it looks like they might allow teams of 5-7 to go to a bowl. One of them's going to be bowl.
I think Maryland and Nebraska are probably lobbying the NCAA hard to deny James Madison that waiver.
That's true. Well, okay. Monica says, thank you, Emmett. There you go.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yep.
I feel like I learned a lot about the heartbeat of the Nebraska fan base.
Oh my God. Now you can go tell people, well, it's not that bad. We have a chance, they can't score, whatever. All right. Thank you, Emmett. Take care. This has been 5 Points of Contact, and there you go. We'll still be on tomorrow night with the 5 Heart Podcast. I'll see you all then.